Ah, yeah. What's going on, Adrian? What are you doing here? Do you guys want to like come to the center? If that's not too much to ask, Alex, I think you're. Yeah, just move a little. Hello, Tammy. How are you? Good. Anyone to bury today?
Yes.
Good for you.
How are you?
How are you? How's the young one?
He's good. He's really good.
What do you mean? If you're not with him, he can't be all that good.
I love that.
If he is good, you're not missing anything. Yeah. How you feeling? Yeah, yeah?
At least I can move around.
Yeah. You guys are like way back. Could you, like, it has wheels. You could just wheel yourself forward. Yeah. Kendra, you're good? Yeah? Your mom? Your brother? How's your aunt? What was her name? Jeannie, that's right. Okay. She's okay? 77. Yeah. There is this bumper sticker going around this culture that age is just a number. It's not. It's, yeah. You guys know Kendra, right? You guys also know Stacy?
No, hi, Stacy.
Stacy and I met about 10 years ago, but she tells me that we met actually like 20 years ago in Davis. I don't really remember, like it's a pizza shop somewhere with her friend Allison. She lives in Sacramento. She used to teach here at Laney. Now she teaches elsewhere. She's also in the hospice program.
Oh,
She loves the old, the sick, and the almost dead.
we should talk.
That is Cassie.
Hi, Cassie.
Cassie used to go to Sierra College. I met her in year 2001, when she was only like 12. Yeah. So they're just visiting. It's good to see them. By the way, Cassie is the one who puts all these videos together and posts the audio. So if you have any complaints, if there are things you don't like, now is your time. Yeah. Alex, how are you? What are you doing? Are you watching a movie? Is it a good movie? What is it? Hangover? What is it with the people? Like bad music, bad movies. I mean, if you're gonna sit in my class and watch a movie, at least watch Rambo or The Matrix. Oh, isn't that true, Danielle?
People like to see what they can't do themselves.
What does that mean? I mean, are you talking about Rambo or Hangover?
I mean, whatever people fantasize about.
Well, you know, it is cultural release. It's a term in sociology that the culture creates a good amount of loneliness, a good amount of sadness, a good amount of violence and rage. And so you have Rambo, you know, or you have that Korean movie, Squid, is it? Squid? The what?
Squid Game?
Squid Game. Or you have a Korean movie, what is that one called? Demon Hunters.
Yeah.
That's actually quite good, yeah, yeah. I mean, man, I mean, there's some really, really good songs in that movie. I mean, I can't believe the range, you know, how high the voice goes and it doesn't crack. It's amazing. No, the movie is called I Saw the Devil. It's about cannibalism. That human flesh can actually taste good, you know, with the right seasoning.
Say it there, maybe.
It's my favorite food. Alex, I thought that was funny, and yet you nothing. Okay. Well, do you guys want to talk about anything, or should we just go home?
I don't know, idea. But like, talking to entities or whatever, come to trust each other from a place of distrust.
It's just hard work. If I was to create a scenario, and I think we've talked about this before, but maybe not, I don't know. Let's say, and this is just a story, so don't feel offended or. Imagine that you've come from a very abusive background. Your father hit you, your mother abandoned you, and it was just a very difficult physical space to live in. So, in as much as a child would desire to run to the mother for some comfort, father for some safety, you realize those elements are absent in your life. So every time they would come home, instead of you being happy, you're terrified because of what may be imposed upon you, i.e. pain. So you run to your room and you distract yourself with video games or whatever the case may be. And you do this for, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And you do it for all the right reasons, you know, because your organism tries to protect itself from harm. And your parents are abusive, they're harmful. And you do anything for too long, you know, it becomes a habit. It becomes your routine in life. You know, it's like me going to my dean yesterday and she tells me, well, you know, we've had a few complaints about you, so I needed to change. I said, listen, you know, I'm 60-some, I can't change. This is the way I am. You don't like the way I teach, well, you know, drop the class. Or adjust, do something. I can make some minor adjustments, but I'm not going to change. You know, to be realistic and to be honest, you know, and not try to pacify people and not to be dishonest. And this is the way I teach. I can't come to class and say, today we're going to talk about Karl Marx for 50 hours. It doesn't work that way for me. And so in the course of protecting yourself, you develop some habits. And it's very organic. It's normal. All of us do it. Okay. And then you get to be, I don't know, 25, 30, and you look at other people, and in the like past 20 years or so, it's not that you never get in relationships, you do. You have some relationships, but you realize that you can never really trust your companion, because by the time you get to that point in your life where relationships are something you desire, you know that people are dangerous. People can hurt you, they can betray you, they can cause you a good amount of pain. So you take 2 steps forward and 5 back. And every time you realize you're getting a little closer, your organism, without you being aware or not, kind of whispers in your ears, Danielle, be careful, you're falling in love, you know. So again, whether knowing or unknowing, you will sabotage your relationship, you know. You'll create some ridiculous conflict or event where your companion leaves for a couple of weeks, and then because he or she loves you, you know, she'll call you or you'll call her, and you guys have a makeup sex session for a while, and then you'll continue, and the same thing will happen over and over again. And then one day, like Elizabeth Taylor, you get out of the bathtub, you look yourself in the mirror, you have no clothes on, and you say to yourself, man, my body is ugly. And then you go on a diet. So at a certain point, you look at your life and you begin to notice your psychological body. And you say, man, I may have 6-pack or 2-pack or 3-pack, biceps chiseled in all sorts of ways, but psychologically, I'm a mess, I'm ugly. And despite everybody noticing how beautiful your physical body is, deep down you don't really much value it, because the mirror has shown you something profoundly unattractive, which is how you are on the inside. And you can con people, deceive people only for so long by having them look at your physical body before the revelation comes forth that yes, he looks good on the outside, but he really sucks as a human being. Now you're 25, 30. That's a lot of habits and routines inside you. Okay. And then you say, man, I'm tired of being alone. And I'm tired of not being able to be, as the Greeks would say, in the stage of pragma. In a relationship that's committal. Where you feel responsible for yourself, for your companion. Where you're actually building a future, with this person. You've never done that, but you want to. It's kind of like a young woman who says, I'm never going to have kids. She says that when she's 2, she says that when she's 5, she says that when she's 18, and she has no idea what's going to happen to her body, especially when the psyche begins to attack her. At the age of 27, 28, all of a sudden her body says, having a child isn't bad. It's a surprise, because for all these years you keep telling yourself, I hate children, I don't want to have kids. I mean, look at this world. Homelessness, poverty, mental illness, you name it, it's all there. All the evils of life. So why the hell would I want to bring another human being into this, environment? But you're a woman, you're condemned by nature. It doesn't mean you're going to have children, it just means that at a certain point, your body says, give me one. Do you want to be alone? The answer is no. Do you want to continuously engage in push and pull? The answer is no. Do you like to create conflict where your companion just leaves you and abandons you? The answer is no. None of us enjoy anything that causes pain. But it's the only way you know how to protect yourself. And you've come to realize the way you've been protecting yourself has caused you more damage than good. Now you want to change. Addiction comes in a variety of different shapes and forms. You don't have to be addicted to marijuana or hashish or cocaine. You have to be addicted to alcohol or video games or porn. You're just addicted to a certain patterns of behavior that ultimately push people away. The moment intimacy comes close. And your question is it possible to stop that? The answer is, of course. Just go to any AA center. Observe them. The 12-step program, it's a very, very profoundly spiritual journey as an alcoholic that you have to take. It's no different than the 10 Commandments in the Jewish tradition. They're all the same, the 4 Noble Truths, because it's really just about overcoming addiction. You're addicted to certain patterns of life and living, you have to overcome it. How do you overcome it? Consider the Eightfold Path in Buddhism, for example. Think about things the right way. How the hell do you do that? First you have to understand that there is this arrogance about you, i.e. pride, and someone has to bring it to your attention. Don't be an ass all the time. You're not a know-it-all. Even if you were to realize that, it doesn't mean that you're at a place where you can go out there, seek a teacher or a mentor, and do the Upanishadic way, which is to sit or to kneel at your teacher's feet. Whether it's your therapist or a priest, it doesn't matter who it is, but someone that you say, I think this person has a good amount of wisdom that can benefit me. But what's the use of, finding Jesus Christ when you're just full of your own trash? He can't do anything for you. He couldn't do anything 2,000 years ago where people were much more simple. And society was much more simple. Today, the story is very different. So, there comes a point, I think Kierkegaard has this statement, leap of faith. Let's just say you like me, Danielle. I invite you to my house, but something about you resists accepting the invitation. And you just gotta get yourself to a point where you say, you know what? I'm just gonna take a leap of faith. For the past 30 years, every time I've gone to someone's house, it's turned up bad. I've known Amir for the past 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks. He hasn't really said anything that's that bad to me. It makes me think, all those things. Maybe I should just try that. Now, there's a good amount of conflict because the past interferes and it clouds your judgment. What you really want to do is come over the house. But the past comes forward and says, you shouldn't do it. And that's what in Islam calls Jihadul Akbar. There are two struggles, Jihadul Asqar and Jihadul Akbar. The Arabic language is so ridiculous. There is nothing poetic about it. Now, Persian, that's a different story. Jihadul Asqar is, I don't like you. I'll wait for you in the parking lot. And then, hey Alex, I'll kick your ass or you'll kick mine, but that's where it goes. Jihadul Akbar is a very different story. I look at you, I don't like you, and I remember what Jesus said in the Gospel of Barnabas. The most difficult thing anyone can do is to swallow their own anger. I don't like you, and every time I look at you, I'm enraged. It's a good amount of anger to be housed inside the human being. And emotions have a tendency of eventually finding a physical container, like my fist in your face. That's a physical container. But the idea of swallowing your anger means instead of expressing it outward, you push it in. You try to understand it. And that is tough because you're going to places you've never gone before. It's dark, it's scary. You're comfortable with the abuse. You've seen it, you know how it feels. But this idea of pacifying the stuff that has driven you for the past 20, 30, 40 years, man, that's not a place you want to go. Because you're going to fail. Every time you want to, I suppose, balance things out inside you, you're not going to be able to. And that frustrates you more, angers you more. It's just a very self-defeating practice. Unless, you have like a piano teacher sitting by your side, and every time you make a mistake, she says, it's okay, try it again. Because she's been there, she's done that. You know that the only way to success is through a lot of failures. If you don't have a mentor, if you don't have someone who cares for you, stands by your side, picks you up every time you fall, so you don't self-defeat, I think you'll be fine. If on the other hand you want to do this all alone, you won't be able to. Ultimately, is it possible to stop the past from imposing itself? Yeah, anything is possible. Is it possible for you to get a PhD? Absolutely. Is it possible for you to get married? Yeah. Have children? Definitely. Do you have the potential to be a great father? Yeah. You just need to have a lot of right components inside you and outside of you to make those possibilities come true. That's all. And remember, this is America. You see what happened just a couple of days ago? About 45% of the American population live under the poverty line. The government doesn't care. The funding is pulled. No one cares for you. Once you figure out what your disabilities are, look for the right mentor. That becomes, so to speak, your spiritual parent. Don't do anything in life on your own unless you're very, very proficient. And you can only be proficient if you have a lot of on-ground practical experience. If I'm your dad and I die and you don't know what to do with my corpse, who are you going to talk to? She's been around the dead for the past like 90 years. You know, she has the intellectual knowledge as well as the practical knowledge. She can guide you. And that's how everything is. You're just sitting in your office and writing bullshit. That doesn't mean it. Making me angry now. Yeah, Tommy, sorry.
I had an interesting conversation yesterday with a colleague, and this colleague mentioned the term quiet quitter, which I had never heard before.
The what?
Quiet quitter?
Quiet quitter? Okay.
It's when an employee comes to work, does their job well, but they don't do anything extra.
Right.
And in order for them to do it extra, you're saying, hey, if you do this, I'll give you this. What are your thoughts about quiet quitting?
About 15, 16 years ago, I decided to create some new courses for the Philosophy Humanities department. Maybe 20 years ago. New Testament, Islam, Old Testament. And then things begin to change, at Laney. I used to give my proposals to my dean. The dean would go to the committee, talk, a little bit, and the committee would say, approved. Then it was up to the faculty to present, their proposals. So the first class that I proposed was philosophy of death. And the committee harassed me for 2 years. Eventually it was approved. Then I proposed philosophy of self and emotions. Another 2 miserable years being harassed. Even certain committee members would say, you guys don't do this to other instructors. Why are you doing this to this guy? And then I had put forth proposals such as philosophy of education, philosophy of God and Satan, philosophy of love and sex. And then I said, do I really want to waste my time with these people? No. And I stopped doing it. And I stopped doing a lot of different things. Because I began to realize that, I'm dealing with uneducated people with diplomas. So I quit. Now I just mind my own business.
That's exactly what a quiet quitter is.
Yeah, but there are some people who just go in it, without having experienced a pushback. And that's just the way they are. They just go for the paycheck, they just go to do what they've been told to do and they come out. That's it, There are some other people who do extra and they're encouraged, they're applauded, and they do more. And there are some who try and eventually they realize it's going to go nowhere and they give up. Imagine the story of prodigal son. The father tried, And then he became a quiet quitter. I've tried, but you suck as a son. You have ears, but you got concrete between them. So you know what? Go have a good time with life. And I think that's a good place to be. I mean, if you read the Gospel of Judas, for example, Jesus basically quits life and he quits people. He quits God. He has a cross on his shoulder, which is go out there and educate people. I mean, that's a mission given to him by God. Or Muhammad. Initially he just talks to people, thinking that just regular conversation is enough to educate people. And then he comes and says, fuck that, this is not going anywhere. And then he picks up the sword. Or Moses, he tries to talk to Pharaoh in a very civilized way. It doesn't work, so he does a few things. And so I think that is a much better place to be, that you try in a socially acceptable way, in a way that your own capacity allows, and you realize after a while it's going nowhere. I mean, look, she tried with that tiny little man. She tried to make him a bit more mature, a bit more reflective. And they've been at it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, however long. And there comes a point where she says, you know what, I'm young. I had all these other interests. And I keep talking to this guy and, he's just somewhere else in life. Leah! Hey! It's good to see you. What are you doing today?
I was going to come here, and then I was going to go to the library then.
Okay. Well, Stacy and Cassie are here. And possibly Kendra and Lark. Won't you just go to the library, do some work, and meet them somewhere? They'll pay for lunch. And even dinner. It's good to see you. Think about it. Actually, no, just do it. The Nike ad. It doesn't say think about it, just do it. You well? You get my message?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, I think it's good to start being active and being engaged. You keep trying and you keep trying. If you don't get anything back, and I think it's just human tendency. And it's very organic. You realize you've reached the max in your capacity, you're just going to walk away. I mean, consider people who end their lives. Suicide. It's like my own teacher, Hussein, who had cancer stage 4. And it's common in cancer patients. After a while, you say, there are no remedies, and all I have is pain, and I'm burdening my wife, I'm burdening my kids, I'm burdening my community. Hello, Aman. I hate to be, this extra, this piece of trash, just vegging out. And so they starve themselves to death. In other words, pain gets to a point where life is no longer worth it. And so what they've done is they've struggled. They go to the doctor, they do chemo, they do radiation, they take all these humongous pills, the body's paralyzed, you live in pain, and all you have is hope that maybe tomorrow. I remember I went out with this young woman for about, 7, 8 years or so. She had multiple sclerosis. And they would come up with all these ridiculous medications, like if you get stung by bees, or if you ride horses, or if you do A, B, C, D, somehow your condition will be reversed. And so we would try all sorts of things. And that's hope. When you try things, it means that there is an ounce of hope inside you. There comes a point where you say, you know what, I've been engaged, I've been hopeful for the past 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 days or weeks or months or years, but it's not going anywhere. I'd rather just end it. Now, is it true that perhaps 2 years from that point, there may be, some medication out there? Yeah, but you're not there yet. And when you're in so much pain, future goes away. I mean, that's one of the problems with pain. Pain puts you in this frozen sea of ice. and you don't see a green light. You know, it's like sometimes I like drive to campus around like 3:30 in the morning. There's not a soul. The light is just red. You know, and it's supposed to have sensors that when it sees a car or feels a car, it just turns green. You wait and you wait and you wait and you wait. You try to be respectful to the law, to the traffic light, you know, to the mouse and the cats that are just running around. You just get tired, you know. So the point ultimately is you try. When you don't get anything back, then you quit. We call it a divorce.
Yes.
Yeah.
How important is imbalance in relationships?
Imbalance?
Imbalance, yeah, not like intellectual imbalance or like emotional imbalance, but like experience in like the world imbalance.
Can I give you a very bad example? I'm sorry, I don't mean to, but yeah, okay. Imagine, and let's just say you're 18. You're 16 right now. I don't want to like be like an Epstein of sorts. So imagine I like you, and imagine you like me, and imagine that like is like times 1,000. So it's not just a like, it's a love. Okay. Now you say, Amir, I love you in a text with one of those emoji faces, and I reply to your text in the same way. You know, I love you back like that. Is it true we sit and we think about buying a house together, having children, you know, going to places? Absolutely. But here's the thing. I am near the sunset of my life. You are in the sunrise of your life. You're beginning your life and I'm ending. There are things you want to do that I'm no longer interested. Is it true that I can bring stability to you? Absolutely. Is it true that you can bring excitement to my life? Yes. But as a young woman who is inspired to be chaotic and explorative, the truth is you don't want stability at this age. You want to go out there and get your hands dirty, you know. And in as much as I think all human beings desire to be inspired, I love to be inspired too at my age. But I can only be inspired maybe 10 minutes in a day, maybe an hour. The truth is I just want to sit and maybe write a little bit and maybe go for a walk. I don't want to go long distance anywhere. Things are no longer as interesting for me. And so what you realize is that my stability is poison to you and your excitement is poison to me. Your excitement will give me a stroke and it'll kill me. My stability will clip your wings. You will die emotionally, you know. And so, and you know, it's one of those injustices in life. The problem is love doesn't care about any of those things. Love doesn't care about youth and excitement, and love doesn't care about old and being stable. Love just makes you a poet. Love gives you this illusion that you have wings and you can carry yourself all the way to the sun. You know, no one tells you about you're going to be burnt alive. You know, at a certain point you come home, you say, let's go for out. It's midnight, man. I usually sleep like at 7 at night. What are you talking about? You know, so to be honest, I don't know how anything works anymore. You know, I don't know how teaching, learning works. I don't know how relationships work. I don't know how to overcome addiction to technology works. I don't know how saving money works. I don't know how buying a house works this day and age. I don't know how friendships work. I mean, things are so immensely complex now. You know, I remember that movie, the second one, Wall Street. Michael Douglas was serving some time in prison because he was, you know, stealing from people and the government. He gets out, and Charlie Sheen, who is now heading this company, invites him to give a talk. And he comes on the stage and he looks at, and this is not Gen Z, this is like baby boomers in the 90s. He looks at them and says, you guys are one of the worst generations. You got no parents, you got no relationships, you got no money, you got no savings, you got no education. Nothing is working for you guys. And yet everybody wants to be rich. You know, I think human beings naturally desire beauty, but I think for that to actually be realized, you need resources. You need society to be on your side. If not society at large, you need at least parents to be on your side. You need friends to be on your side. You need Oakland to be on your side. You know, and you realize you need movies to be on your side. And there is nothing, you know. It's a saying that existed in Iran a long time ago, which is, I remember I was working at Castilian. It's a Davis dormitory. And I was, I think, 16. I was washing dishes, mopping the floors. And they asked me for my social security number. I said, what? What is that? But because they liked me, the company just generated, you know, like 9 numbers. And they were 000000000. You know, and I didn't get paid for about 7 months. And when I finally got paid, it was like $600. What was I going to say?
We're talking about imbalancement.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, we used to say that Americans live alone, drink alone, eat alone, watch movies alone, sleep alone, and eventually die alone. You know, and if loneliness is the common denominator in every branch of life, it's really very difficult to kind of make your dreams come true, because you do really need a support system. You know. You know, if I'm walking around campus as I did this morning, I don't mind if ICE pulls me over. And if I can show them my document, they can just release me. But that's not the case anymore. You know, I mean, I don't know if you guys watched the footage last night. It's about this, you know, ICE agent who is Hispanic, you know, off duty. He sees some kid. He's off duty. He pulls out a gun saying that you're illegal. How is that possible? You come from a different country. You know, you speak a different language. You're not even a native to this land. You know, all you have is power. And how soon you can forget your own origins? You know. So I don't even know if I answered your question. I don't even know if that question is answerable.
You talked about the movie American History X. I haven't watched it yet. I will.
Yeah.
But that bridge between the 2 different cultures, is that like an important aspect of making, like, you know, like making peace, or making, like, let's say in our scenario here, like your favorites, you have like 3 cars and like 60 languages. If we have a relationship, does that mean we see each other on the other side of the other person's world, or is that just like a big difference that'll end up like ruining our relationship?
At my age, I'm not going to go through very many transformations. This is what you see. This is it. You know, the only change that you will see is me having cancer. That's the only change. You know, I'm not going to like all of a sudden have an epiphany and change with the way I think and teach and be. It's not going to happen. You, on the other hand, a tornado is waiting for you. In other words, you're going to go through so many ups and downs. Today you're this way, tomorrow you're going to be something completely different. You know, I had my sister, when she was going to Roseville High School, she had a friend, she was Indian, her name was Anusha. She decided to write one final essay for her English teacher. And the following day, she wanted to commit suicide. And she wrote her heart out, you know. And this instructor said, and this is high school, you know, she's like 15 or 16 or something. He reads it, and he's inspired. It's so beautifully written that she calls her parents, And she says, you have a gifted child. So he protected this young woman. She went to Berkeley and then Stanford, got her PhD in literature. She now teaches. And the point I'm trying to make, that's not going to happen to someone like me. When you're young, you go through a whole host of emotions, and you think these emotions are never going to change. But elements walk into your life. And every single force that enters you, if you're receptive of that force, it makes changes. Some changes are minor, some changes are major. Okay. At the age of like 20, you may like certain attributes. At the age of 30, you won't like them anymore. And you got to know this. This is not like the 1920s where you get married and that's it. In sickness and in health, you're going to stay. These days, it's all sickness. I mean, at least 90% of it, especially by the time your companion unpacks their psychological body, their past, some of their routines and behaviors, the ways they eat. Daniel Day-Lewis played in this movie where they're sitting outside in the forest, beautiful, nature and natural environment, and his wife is just eating food. And he happens to be in that particular mood. He looks at her, the way she eats, the way she picks up the spoon, the way she chews, and he's completely disgusted. Maybe he's just contemplating divorce, who the hell knows? But the point I'm trying to make is, by the time you figure out the ins and outs of your companion, you probably won't like him as much. You should just get a PhD. And if you run into someone while you're doing literature, they're also doing their PhD program, what you have in common is a huge thing. This platform is called I Love Literature and She Loves Literature. So you guys are going to spend like 5 hours each day talking about literature. Another 5 years in the kitchen, another 5 hours like washing dishes, another 5 hours vacuuming. And then you sit, for like 10 minutes, you look at each other and you discuss it. But 5 minutes of disgust is nothing. You just need to have a common denominator that's big. That both of you like the same thing. Or if you don't like the same thing, at least you know how to keep your mouth shut. Leo? Hello, how are you?
In one of the Tuesday and Thursday classes, you mentioned the concept of narcissism and how we need others to, reflect certain traits and attributes for us because we can't see them ourselves. Is it possible for someone to create like a closed loop ecosystem where they are both Narcissia and Amir?
I think if you have reached a stage where you can say something, then immediately catch yourself, then yeah. You're both the actor as well as the observer. That's a really, really good place to be, but most of us are not that lucky. Simone de Beauvoir, who was Jean Paul's companion for many, many years, and she fell in love with another person, and he, sadly for him, he was never really able to fall in love with anyone. So you have two very, very profound thinkers with very different perspectives. Jean-Paul Sartre would argue that we are held hostage by the gaze of other people. They judge us, condemn us, they create a lot of awful things that we feel about ourselves simply because they are gazing at us, It's like me going to my boss yesterday because of certain issues that students were having. And I didn't care for her gaze. Her judgment did not impact me. And if it did at my age, that would be embarrassing. After like 35 years of being in a classroom, that I could just fizzle out and fall apart in that way. Simone de Beauvoir had a different perspective, which was you have two choices in life. You could either be seen through the eyes of Snoop Dogg, or you could be seen through the eyes of Angela Davis. Now, it may be that you're no political activist, you're no social activist, you don't have very much empathy. You know, you don't care about what's happening out there. You're all about bling bling, smoking on TV, telling people the benefits of marijuana and all that. Okay. Now, you may have fun with that, which means that that becomes your Jesus Christ, the gaze of Snoop Dogg. Okay. Or you have the gaze of Angela Davis. Now, that's a heavyweight, which means that she's going to expect you to be more than you are. You know, it's not enough for you to sit and read a book. You got to go out there in the streets with your fist to the heavens. You got to have a voice. You can't be sad. You can't be depressed. You know, you always need to be positive because you are a force to improve what exists out there. Now, the bigger the gaze, the heavier the cross you have to carry. Let me give you a more realistic scenario. Assalamu alaikum. You're carrying 28 units this semester. Your life is busy. You know, you could be sitting out in the sun, you know, working on your tan. You could sit in the cafeteria getting yourself a cup of coffee. You could do schoolwork. We don't talk about ideas that are fun. I mean, these are like painful, disturbing, you know, dark, gloomy things that sometimes we talk about, and yet you enjoy it. It elevates certain mysterious parts of you, which means what? That the gaze of philosophy, despite all the burdens and troubles it creates inside you, it makes you better despite the pain it causes. And so what this means is that you're going to go to the library and you're going to go to the bookshelves and you're going to take out some books written by Simone de Beauvoir, Angela Davis. So why not just read a cheesy magazine about Kim Kardashian? Because the gaze of Kim Kardashian for you creates disgust. You feel pathetic and cheap. I think if you were to read enough Angela Davis and hang out with Angela Davis often, after 10 years' time, you will say, you know what? I don't want to see her anymore, and I don't want to read works by her anymore. You know why? Because there's a good amount of Angela that now lives inside you. You could be Leah and Angela at the same time. And every time Leah missteps, the Angela that now lives inside her comes to resurrect. And you will be punished. That's a great place to be. Painful, that's great. Yeah. Cassie? Anything? Oh, that's Cassie, by the way, for this is a bit late. Cassie's the one who posts all those like ridiculous audios and videos. I mean, I am ridiculous. She does a great job. Before I forget, Kendra, Stacy, and Cassie, they teach philosophy and humanities. For those of you who are looking to take classes and get good grades without doing an ounce of work.
Oh, no.
I'm just kidding.
What do you want to eat? Carlton? Oh, we really need to talk.
Well, you're going to American River.
Yeah.
Oh, but
I teach at ARC.
Do you really? Okay. I'm transferring to their Hero Service Education Program.
Yeah, I've heard.
So if you need an ad, I'm gonna get your number after class. Both of you all, Kendra too. Okay.
I'm sorry, Cassie, you were saying? Forgive me.
Maybe you could talk about receptivity. If it's something that is related.
I think if you were to look at the life of any human being, what you realize is that before the involvement of any external forces, biology injects and hardwires in us a specific type of a temperament. You don't need to do anything. You come out introvert, extrovert, feeler, thinker. You're either made of water, fire, air, or earth. That's not up to you. That's not up to anybody. You know, I don't know if the egg inside the woman does something to the sperm. I have no idea how that stuff works. All I know is that there are all these elements. You know, if you were to do the Asian part of it. So you come up with one of those elements, okay? So you come out full, okay? Which means that if you're made of fire, if you're like chaotic and always on the move, should you find a teacher who wants to teach you something, the first thing they need to do is calm you down. And that can be done in a variety of different ways, okay? That's number one. Number two, if you chart the human life, you realize that just in case the person who's carrying you has any deficiencies, you're going to inherit some of those. Then when you do come out, whatever your physical environment, that's going to be part of who you are. Okay. Then you have media. Then you have education. Then you have your own personal experiences that you form emotions about, and emotions are judgments, and judgments ultimately create biases. Okay. By the time you get to be 10, you are fully shaped. You know, those formative years, you know, if you look at, for example, the way concrete is formed, you create this form, some rebars, you know, you go to Home Depot, buy 40 bags of concrete, put some water, you pour them. And once in a while you go out to wet it, to just strengthen the concrete. That's your formative years. As long as it's wet, you can change the shape and reshape it the way you wish. The moment it hardens, after 48 hours or a few days, you need a jackhammer. Now imagine that all of us in this class are like fully formed concrete. Whether that fully formed comes from a healthy background or an unhealthy background. You just come to realize there are certain things about your life you don't like and you want to change. Unless you find a jackhammer, it's impossible. And that's the problem with education. It is painful. I'm not talking about Laney or Stanford or Yale. Anytime you want to change anything that has taken shape inside you, you're not receptive to possibilities. You can imagine them. But those imaginations will never be realized. It's not possible. You know. So forgive the self-indulgence. You were 17 when I met you. 17, Cassie. And the nice thing about being young is that when you're young, you're just confused. You're trying to figure out who you are, what you are. And the adults out there are telling you, well, you need to figure things out immediately. I'm 10. Give me a fucking break. You know? And one of the nice things about confusion is that you are really open to all the possibilities that are out there. You know? In the right space, you could run into, with some luck, Angela Davis, and all of a sudden, you who didn't care much about society, had a zero amount of empathy about you, all of a sudden you're a social activist, and you become a Mother Teresa. even the Mother Teresa was somewhat of a bitch. You know, or, you know, you could run into, I don't know, Eminem. The point I'm trying to make is when you're confused, you're open. The only thing you need to pray for is you better pray for someone decent to walk into your life. You know, which makes, forgive the digression, women's task in this particular scenario so, I think, difficult and somewhat dangerous. Because you're 16, 17, 18, you want to explore the world. The media is all about sex. You want to experiment with this. There's a young man out there. He looks interesting. But young men are not there yet. They're just young men. They're vultures. They don't really know what you know, this layer of love in Greek philosophy, which is pragma. You know, they don't really know how to commit. They have a bumper sticker of an idea, but bumper stickers don't really mean anything, you know. And so they kind of fall into this trap, and you know, they get damaged in certain ways. So confusion is necessary. Now, let's say that a scenario. May I? It's going to be awful. You take a class, you know, you have a spouse or a companion, and your life is set. You know where you're going and what you're doing. And you just take a philosophy class or some class out there because you just need the class to graduate. I don't know why we like things. We just like them. I think you have this like non-sensory palate that lives inside your soul or psyche or something. You hear an idea and you taste it. It's really good. You know, it makes you think and it's painful, but again, it tastes really, really good. And you take a little bit of that home and you play with it. And it creates a little bit of a distance between you and your companion. And you don't know why. And you want to share the stuff with him or her, but it doesn't work too well. Language just messes everything up. Your emotions get in the way. You're not really that versed to put your emotions into language, your thoughts into language. And little by little, like what we say in Persian, like a thief at night, you come to class full, or you walk into life full, your hopes, dreams, plans, you know, goals. And someone walks into your life and, you know, they steal the saucer first, then it's the cup first, then the plates, then the bowls, then one day you open the cabinet and there is nothing there. And you look at them and say, "You did this to me." You know, what's that song? You know, there is this really, really nice song. I mean, it's okay as the songs go. It's called "I'm So Alone." Have you guys heard it? I don't know.
There's a lot of songs like that.
Really? Oh, well, this song is just called "I'm So Alone." And she says to this guy, you know, I gave you my heart, I gave you my memories, I gave you my hope. Now I want them back. I'm here to take them back. And so the point I'm trying to make ultimately is some people come to you full, and little by little they're jackhammered, and cracks begin to appear, and their life falls apart. You need to understand when someone comes to you full, it means that there is this concrete, there's the base plate, you know, then there are the walls, you know, then there is the roof, and inside this sanctuary, it's called a life. And that life has meaning, it has purpose, it has history. And when someone jackhammers it, they're not just destroying this physical house. I mean, meaning is going to go away. That's one way of being receptive, or becoming receptive, which is it comes at the cost of a life being destroyed, so another life is being created. But this other life, you have no idea how it's going to be. You know, I mean, I always go back to the puny, pathetic disciples of Jesus Christ in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. I mean, this guy is inspiring. He goes like this, and all of a sudden donuts appear. Noah's bagels appear with cream cheese. Who wouldn't follow this man? And, they hear his words, and it's not just mental. It goes inside them. And you realize that other people have the power through language, through charisma, through their physical presence, to kind of just dig a hole inside you and just go inside that. And you want to get rid of them, they refuse to leave. And then at a certain point, he says, well, I'm leaving. Where are you going? Well, I just came to Nazareth to say hello to everybody, but my job here is done. I'm going to go to Jerusalem. But that means it's going to take us like 5 months to get there. Well, you can come if you want. But if I was to come with you, what's going to happen to my wife? Well, I came here to create conflict between husband and wife, father and son. Really? Is that what it takes for me to follow you? You're going to destroy this life of mine? And what am I going to get? The kingdom of God. What the hell is that? I mean, look, the only reason why you did philosophy, and you got a PhD in religious studies, Cassie, because you wanted to be in the classroom and be a Socrates. Now, none of us know how the future, this kingdom of God, what it looks like, if you're ever going to be there or get there, and if you do get there, how it's going to function through you. None of us know that. All we know is that we are following this man or this person based on a leap of faith. I don't know where he's taking me. I don't know what he's doing to me. All I know is I like it. I don't even know why, because it sucks. The problem with being confused is that you don't have too much trash to take care of. If, for example, one of the things you need to understand, for those of you who may not kind of reflect on this too much, let's say, and forgive me if it kind of feels the wrong way for you, there is a huge difference between men and women in society. Okay? If you're a woman and you're like 50 and you got like 3 kids, your value has depreciated. The idea of a man walking into your life and being okay with a woman at the age of 50, divorced 2, 3, 4, 5 times, or maybe just once, with 4 kids, that's too much stuff. And now it doesn't mean the man is not going to fall in love. They'll fall in love with you. But after a while, they will come to realize the complexity of the situation. Okay? And the point I'm trying to make is, if you go to a teacher of sorts, and you are concrete, hard, formed, if that person breaks you, that person feels the responsibility of taking care of the parts inside that's broken. Because the moment you're broken, loneliness, depression, confusion, frustration, anger, conflict, they're going to come to you like an army, and you won't be able to survive it. You'll be demolished. It's just too much. If, on the other hand, you only find someone, a mentor, in a confused state, you may be broken in certain ways, but there isn't much to take care of. All they got to do is just, come to the house, have some food, hang out with the rest of us, and that's it. Receptivity also has different functions. Let me give you an example. Forgive me, I'm going to use that. She's a good friend of mine, Leah is. Okay. I have extended to her an invitation. Come to my house. She needs to be receptive. For her to accept the invitation, I don't know if she will. I'm not asking for her emotions. I'm not asking for her mind. I'm not asking for her soul. All I'm asking her is a physical body to be present in my house. But that's a lot of things for her to overcome, to become receptive to that particular invitation. When she's there, The physical space is going to create certain emotions. Now, those emotions may run against the emotions she's usually used to. Physically, she's there, but emotionally and mentally and spiritually, she's not there. She's there simply as a physical body. Now, she may know the art of pretending really, really well, but that doesn't mean anything in the long run. So if I was to be good at what I do, I have to coerce and manipulate her to arouse certain kinds of emotions. And I gotta do it so often where she says, you know what, I go to my aunt, but I want those kind of emotions. My aunt can't give it to me. You know, my mom can't give it to me. My friends can't give it to me. So you know what she'll do? She'll pick up the phone. Professor, by this time, Amir, I'm really, really sorry to bother you. I was wondering, if you're not doing anything, can I come and have some tea with you and your wife and kids? Of course, yeah. You know, get on your bike, come over. Once she has taken the bait of the emotions, the next task is, emotions are like junk. They give you a lot of inspiration, but it doesn't mean you know how to understand them. And it doesn't mean you know how to process your own past experiences. All you know is that you come here, you're inspired, past, future goes away, you're just right there. And then we go to the back room, as you guys have been there many, many times. We say, okay, let's have a conversation. And now comes the conversation. And the task of the conversation is twofold. It needs to have the proper amount of emotions, but you must also be pushed to think, to reflect, and to understand. And you may not be receptive to that just yet. And you may never get there. And so you realize that people can be receptive at different levels. Someone can give you their body, but not their emotions. Someone can give you their emotions, but not their body. I mean, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You can just play with this stuff, you know. Someone may give you their mind, their body, and their intellect, but they may not really have much of a soul inside them. And they'll intellectualize everything, you know. So, and the more proficient a mentor is, the more they're going to experiment. And once they realize that their experimentation is not going anywhere, they'll just walk away. It's kind of like quiet quitter. You know, it's one thing that you're a parent, I'm a parent, she's a parent, that we know really well. Our children don't listen to us. You're far too close. You're far too intimate. The sort of fear and respect that you need to have to be able to pay attention, you know, and follow certain guidelines, parents don't have the power. So an insightful parent says, since my kid is not listening to my life experience, I'm going to have him talk to a friend of mine.
Yeah.
You know, it's like boot camp. You know, what is it that the parent wants? Fix your goddamn bed. You don't listen, boot camp. You don't fix your bed, 50 push-ups. And then a kick in your nuts. That's what it is. But I think the first task, you gotta like someone. That's the initial. That's your initiation into a possible future. Once you like them, then that excitement and inspiration needs to kind of be continuous for a while. And then what we do is we compare and contrast emotions. You know, I hang out with Cassie, I feel a certain way. I hang out with Tammy, I don't feel that way. So you know what? I'm going to cut Tammy and just hang out with Cassie. That takes a while. Yeah. And the truth is, I don't really know how. If someone doesn't like you, if you're a novice, if you're young, if you're dreamy, a hippie, you will try to hammer at it until they like you. And the truth is, they'll just hate you more. Most of it is luck, really. Yeah.
So is it true that we can have multiple teachers? So say, for example, I have Cassie for one thing, and then you for another, and then Kendra for another.
There has to be a common denominator. I mean, by the time you become a bona fide student, the walls and the windows will speak to you, you know. But I think once you have a teacher that you've hung out with for a while, that becomes your main platform. Every other person who comes your way, you compare it to that particular person. Now, what usually happens is you're saturated by teacher number one. In other words, there's this feeling that after like 5, 10 years that they don't really have much to offer me anymore, or something about it says, okay, I think that's good. Now you move, now other people with other temperaments and other teaching style and other information begin to inspire and excite you. So you gravitate towards them. If I was to, forgive me, so I worked with Hossein for 10 years. Then there was this guy, David Long at Sac State. He was also a little of a funny buffoon of a teacher. Really, really wonderful guy. Then from there, I went to this other guy named Muhammad Haqqi. Incredible mind. You know, he got run over by a car in Los Angeles a few years ago. And then I hung out with Jacob Needleman and the Gurdjieff movement for a while. Time passed. I became a bit more independent, a bit more autonomous in thinking, and you know, all those things. And then at a certain point, I realized that the only person that really mattered was the first one. Yeah. I took advantage of what other people had to give me, but everything was placed on the first platform. Hossein was this like filter. Everything else was filtered through him, but I didn't know this. Time passes, and then you begin to realize a few things. You know, and I think the task of any good teacher is, first they make you into a good student, and in making a good student, there's a good amount of attachment, you to your mentor. There needs to come a point, and this is only for very rare, you know, individuals. At this stage in my life, I think if you have found yourself a mentor, if you're able to stay with that mentor for the rest of your life, it's like you have the sun and you know how to revolve and where to go to revolve. Just in case you become saturated, God forbid, and you realize that this particular fellow has nothing more to offer you, you got to find someone or something to worship, and that's going to be tough. There is this great book that for those of you who are interested, it's called Daughter of Fire. It's a fantastic book because it's about a 50-year-old woman who goes to India on a spiritual quest. She finds a teacher, and the journey and the struggles. It's 1,000 pages, and you can get it on Amazon for about $20. I don't think in all the years that I've read all these books, I've ever encountered a book that's so detailed and discusses this love-hate relationship to a teacher and a love-hate relationship that the teacher has towards a student. And what was I saying? Yes. And after you finish this book, you say, you know what? Plato is good, but this is the book that I want. You know, Daughter of Fire. And then you go around bookstores and you want to find books similar to that particular genre. And the sad part is you can't find any. And even if there are people who've gone through that particular journey, the way they detail their journey is so superficial. And it lacks so much depth that after like 2 pages, you say, you know what, fuck this, I'm not doing this. It's a waste of time. And that's one of the bad things that could happen to you. If you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a parent that was really, really wonderful, or a book or a teacher, and all of a sudden they just die, or you finish the book, you know, you hunger for beauty. You hunger to be inspired. And you look for it, only to realize you live in poverty. There is no book out that compares to this one. And that's a really sad place to be. So for those of you who are like reading a really, really good book, my advice is read one word at a time. You know, finish the book in like 10 years' time. For those of you who need to leave, I understand. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I don't remember what happened. I told you that happened at Vita.
Okay.
They're gonna suspend me. So I'm just wondering
Suspend you for what?
for physically assaulting both students.
Okay.
So I can't come to the campus. I think it's like, even though it's Alameda that gave it to me, I think it's like the district one.
But you're not dropped from the class, right?
No. But I still. So I'm like, how does that work? I got the news on Monday. Actually, come to your class.
You don't need to come. I'll take care of it. Just stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you.
It's only for this semester, right?
This semester and next semester, but I'm transferring. That's why I really need these classes. Like, I really need these classes.
I'll take care of you in this class, but other classes you
Yeah.
gotta talk to the instructors.
Okay.
So just stay in touch.
Thank you. I
Sorry.
appreciate it. It was a pleasure to have you this semester.